Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It is February 13th, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. And it was kind of an interesting day, really, up until about right in here. This had a downward, well, it's really neutral all the way across, but notice that we traded down into this channel, so you really got a neutral uh, bias to down bias right through here. Notice it's mostly shorts, and then right here when we start to make higher lows and higher highs, that's when it kind of switched to a more neutral to upward bias, and then late in the day it just really kicked in with this big move up here. um, Generally when you trade into a range, whichever way you trade into it, we traded down, that's where you'll succeed in on your breakout. So generally you would expect prices to go lower from here, but it didn't. It went up from here. So, but that's why we don't trade based on what we expect, because it doesn't always do what we expect. So we follow the rules, and the rules say, you know, you follow the bias. And so you can see this is a little upward channel here, but at the same time we're still up above. Notice how we're above, below, above, below, above, below. I'm talking about the EMA here. Above, below, above, below, above, below, and then now we're above. So now we got a trend from here on. We've really got a two-tiered channel here, but it's more flat than it is up. So we're just really trading this both ways until right in here. And then I did mark one short up here. We'll talk about it when we get to it. So, but we were really mired in this range right here. Earlier, the highs were a little bit lower, and then we kind of got up here, and this turns out to be kind of your midpoint. And so you measure this side and drag it up, and you see we turned down right there, but we ended up pushing on through it. And we tested that line multiple times and kind of stayed above it. So we just really got in a tighter channel up here is what happened. And still we're above, below, above, below. It's after 2 o'clock, so, but I'm just showing you that there. So that's the big picture. Now let's back out. And you can see all the short-term trends in here. Trend lines I drew. Those kind of keep you on the right, help kind of keep you on the right side as the day progresses. But you can see early on how flat this was. I mean, it was really flat from probably 1 or 2 o'clock my time, and then we're just steadily back and forth. This was a downtrend until we went sideways here, and then we're just kind of looking at buying the lows and selling the highs. So, and that lasted really till about, we finally broke higher here about 9:30 and made a higher low and went higher. So just keep that in mind. But when I came in, we were going sideways and had this breakout. And so you expect prices to come back and at least test that and probably go back to the low, because generally a breakout's going to fail. And that's what happened here. So look for a lower high, which comes right here. Nice bearish bar. And again, today the bars are kind of large, so just ignore that. If they're too big, if you feel the bars are too big, you either got to try to get in with a limit order. In other words, let it break below this bar and drop your limit order back up in here, so you do stay within the 2-point rule and are able to get your safety stop above this high right here. And the other option is to either put your stop where it goes and use a bigger target. And so that's kind of what I've done lately, is try to get a bigger target if there's room. Or else try to use a limit order and get a little, and I'll show you example of some of those where you could have done that. Try to get a little better entry. But anyway, you get your lower high, big bar, nice bearish. That's where you want to go short right there. And that's a quick, easy move that you could have got a couple of points out of. There's actually 4 or 5 points in there, I believe. And it bounces right off that low. It's tempting to go long right there, but you really need to wait on a, notice that trend line working down, and we don't have a break outside of it yet. Our close outside. You can see that working down through there. And you could argue for a close. That's not very convincing. So, but notice that first entry moving down, second entry. So there's 2 legs down. And so when that fails, you can treat that like a second entry, and we're probably going to test this low even if we're done here. But that, I would say that trend line's still in play there, and that's a key entry point. So I like that one, treating it as a failed second entry. It's only a first entry counting off the lows, but you need to have room to get out here. So make sure you got room before here. Wherever you consider your low, it might have even had it up another tick there. Generally, I use where I get the most closes, most touches using the closes, and that was right there in my opinion. So what you might do is let prices break below this bar and drop a limit order, and you could have gotten filled all the way back up within 3 or 4 ticks of that high, and that would have been a quick, easy move back down, and you get in this with only 3 or 4 ticks at risk. You won't always get that, but you did on this one. And then here's another one. How big is this bar? This bar is that's basically 3 points. So if you can get your safety stop back to right about here, you probably enter in the 2-point rule and just let it break lower and drop a limit order back here and see if it'll come back and get you. And would have been another quick, easy one. And you would have probably been within the 2-point rule again. And you can see we got a couple of closes outside now. Definitely this one, a move to a new low, and it bounces. You need to wait on a higher low here, and we really don't get that till right here, and that's bars too neutral. And we kind of get a close outside here, move to a new high, and again, you want to wait on a lower high here most likely, and you don't get that. So it just, the bottom drops out again. And so it was kind of hard to get a good entry on these couple of swings here. There is a second entry long right here, but it's right into these highs. So again, I'm not crazy about it. And so you just have to kind of be patient and watch this go across here. You got to miss a few trades, and several of them are pretty good moves. You might have considered entering here to the short side. I'll make this one green, and I'll explain how you would try to enter that one. Since we're not really getting lower highs and higher lows off the lows and highs, when this bar set up, you might let prices break lower and then drop your limit order back up in here and see if it'll come back and fill you, with only a point or so as a risk. And you might have got in that one that way. There is a lower high right here, but you're just kind of going sideways. There's not a whole lot of room back down here. We've made a higher high the last couple of swings. We did make a lower high here, so you might have considered this one. It's just such a big bar, you'd have to enter on a limit order, like I explained, and it would have worked, but I don't know if I would risk that coming back twice before I got filled. Actually, it came back here and you could have gotten filled. So if you did it with the limit order, maybe you enter there. So I'll give it a green one. But no way I'd enter below that bar with that big a stop right there and only that much room. Just too big a risk. There's a second entry short here. Again, the same thing. It's just a huge bar. But again, if you let it break lower and use a limit order, you would have gotten filled. You could have gotten filled as much as 1 tick into that bar. It's hard to watch that come all the way back and bump against that a couple of times and then re-enter. So you're better off to let that one come back and then enter below that bar. But that's why we put our stop where we do. Notice how each one of those highs, prices cannot break above it again. And that's what protects you. That's why we put those stops there, because it protects you. It hides your stop. Because if you put it anywhere in the middle of that bar, you probably got stopped out. Pretty much anywhere in the middle of that bar, you probably would have gotten stopped out. So that's why you put it where you put it. But you might have entered here based on what I just explained. But again, when this came back and makes a perfect double top lower than that last swing high, I like going short there. Limit order wouldn't have worked on that one, so you don't have any option there. And that one rockets down, quick, easy scalp. And then we bounce again, and then we do get a lower high here. You want to enter above this bar, but if you notice, there's another tick or so here, so your stop would have to go below that swing low right there. And again, that's a huge bar, but again, you might have let it break lower, dropped a limit order back here. I can't remember exactly how far this bar came back after it broke higher, but you might have got filled and you might not have. So, but that would be the only way I would enter right there. And that turns out to be a nice move. And so if you did enter right here and use a huge stop, you could have gotten more than that. So if you had to use a 3-point, 4-point stop, you could have got 3 or 4 points out of it going the other way. And so that's the only way to do that in this type of market. So just keep that in mind. But notice we're running up. You get your close outside, a first entry, pull back, and there's a second entry long right there. That bar is not very bullish, so I don't like that as a second entry. But notice this low off the bottom. First entry, second entry. So that's a failed second entry short, and it's a, notice how we're making higher lows every single time. I like that one to the upside for that reason. Probably going to trap some shorts. And off it goes. And it does come back again here. And it's not a very bullish bar, but you could almost, there's actually one leg pull back, two legs. There's actually two legs up, and this actually went lower first and turned up. But there is enough room to get out before you get back to that high, but it's just not a very good bar. It's more bullish than it is bearish, but it's just not a really strong bar. It's pretty close to that resistance. It is kind of a breakout pullback off of those highs right there, and we've already pushed through there here, so we're probably going to try to make a new high, or at least test this high, because look at this trend coming up, and you get that little trap to the low side. So we're probably going to keep pushing up until we make that new high right there. And notice how we made that. We did push on up and make that new high, and it comes down. You get a first entry long, it pushes through the EMA. You get a second entry long right off that trend line key entry point. That's a nice bearish bar. It's a reversal pattern. I like going short right below that bar. And again, it's a quick, easy move. And it actually goes right to the tick to that trend line and turns up. Then you're working up, you get a higher low here. Not a very good bar. You might, I mean, it's more bullish than anything, but you're still closing below that EMA. So see if it'll push through and come back and give you the reversal pattern. So now you got two legs up, failed second entry short, nice bullish bar. There's where you go long, and off it goes. Right here, you want to make sure it's nice if you got enough room before you get out to this high, but this is the one you really want to be concerned about, because that made that pushed everything up to the new high. And then it pushes on through. You're just going sideways here, but look what happens. You got to close outside, move to a new high, one more push up, double top, which is a double test, and you're still a good ways away from the EMA. It's also could be treated like a failed break out of this trading range, out of this high right here, the overnight high. And so I like that one. Again, it's a pretty big bar. You just want to be able to get out before here. So you got to take that in consideration. But it makes a lower high here at another fairly bearish bar. And that's a failed second entry long. Look at that high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. So we're probably coming back down, hopefully at least to this trend line, but we could come all the way back down to here. It actually bounces early. You're still looking for a test of this low, so this could be just possibly a correction. So you got to be real careful getting long there. There is a failed second entry short. It would have worked, but going long right back into that support resistance of the overnight high, I'm not crazy about it. So I didn't mark any of these. And look what happens. It turns back down. It makes a lower high from that. And so now you'd look for that. You're basically just going to look for what's going on there. don't know what's happening to my thing. It's not giving me my arrow. I'm trying to put it on there anyway. But you'll look for a measured move here. Basically measuring from here to here and then putting it here. And you can see we ended up bouncing off the trend line, so it didn't really matter. But I would definitely, if you got room there, and you know it's a huge bar, but it still fits the rules, so it's failed second entry long. And we're just really going by the rules. You got to keep in mind the size of the bars and the volatility and all right now, but it still fits our what we're looking for. It bounces off the trend line. First entry short, second entry short, gives you a chance to go long. The only problem is it's right back into that support resistance line. Nice bar. It does work, and then it turns back down though again. And we come down. There's a second entry long here, but not a very good bar. This one's pretty big. You get a higher low here, but it's right back into that support resistance line. So you may wait till here. Even here, there's a failed second entry short, but again, you're still below that. You could argue for that one if you want to be aggressive. And then it makes a lower high here, and it's kind of like a little, it pushes through and pulls back and tests this little area. There's a, man, something's really going on weird with my stuff here. But you can see that resistance across there. Right across there. And so it pulls back and tests it and makes a lower high. So this one is close to being blue because now we've got to close outside this channel. And if we push on through here, we're probably going up. So you could almost argue for this one is just like right borderline at the blue. And so I really wouldn't have a problem. I like that one. It's a little bit aggressive though because it's right into the high. But the overnight high is back, or actually that's the measured move is back up here. And if we end up getting that based on the distance between the support and resistance between here, as you can see, then we still got a long ways to go. So and that's a nice move. Of course, you don't know that, but you figure it's probably going to come to the upper side. We end up overshooting it. I did mark a couple of more trades here. Notice we pull back first entry, pull back second entry. So there's a second entry long, only about the smallest bar of the day, probably 3 or 4 ticks. It bounces right off that support resistance. And it's the first break of this little trend line moving up. So you would expect prices to test that before it turns down. It actually shoots up and makes a new high. And then you got a lower high here, but this is pretty bullish, so I don't think I would take a lower high. But when you get that failed second entry long here and turns down, I'd go short right there. Notice it still bounces off that EMA, but it pushes on through. I like that one. And you really could argue for this one as well. I just felt like you're probably better off to wait on that true reversal. So you could argue for both of those really. The only reason this one is borderline almost green is because it's right back into that EMA. But you've got a huge overshoot here, and I would expect it to at least try to test this line twice before it went high. Notice it just pushes on through. And we did keep pushing on it and pushing higher, but we really were just going sideways from that point on. You can see that there. So, and that was pretty much it today. So, good many trades today. It got a little slow in the afternoon. Most of your easy to see, easy to understand stuff's here in this when we're going mostly sideways. But even though there's a slight upward bias here, we're still swinging back and forth above and below the EMA. And whenever it's doing that, just like right up here, you can trade it both ways. So keep that in mind, and you just about have to trade it both ways because that's the only, you're not going to get a lot of setups otherwise. And it's fairly, it's fairly safe to trade it both ways as long as you're back and forth above the EMA. If we're heading up here and everything's above the EMA, then only trade in the direction of the EMA. So keep that in mind. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.